Hey everyone, it's Kong again, and here's another episode of Should You Summon. As always, of course, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews using these 4 criteria to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. How these characters fit into your team, whether they unlock any bonds, what kind of content they get used for, and their future availability. So let's get into this Destiny banner featuring Ledin, Rachel, and Altemuller running from November 12th to November 25th. We're gonna have some deja vu with this banner. Anyway, as a Destiny banner, your first SSR is guaranteed to be one of these 3 that you don't already have, and then after that first SSR pull, it reverts to a normal raid-up banner. So let's start with Ledin, since he was the first protagonist of the first game in the Langrisser series. He's primarily a PvE-focused tank, whose guard skill converts his defense and magic defense into his attack. If he takes a melee attack and meets a hit point check, then he'll counterattack twice, which means he does big damage to melee enemies who engage into him. His 3-cost skill improves his basic guard by extending its duration and making it undispellable, and then it kidnaps a nearby enemy, teleporting them next to him so he can attack them. Nearby enemies then suffer reduced movement and can't guard. The skill is good for guard and stat conversion uptime, but the main downside is you can't simply set it up without a target. And then it doesn't help Ledin's weaker damage when he himself is the one initiating combat. He does have a unique weapon as well, but it's not generally as good as the Oath of Justice, which is his preferred choice. Still, those are kinda rare and other characters want them as well, so if you don't have enough to go around, you can buy this hammer. After he kills an enemy, he gets a 2-turn opportunity to self-revive if he's killed. He's a member of Protagonists, buffed by Matthew, and Legion of Glory, buffed by Ledin, Elwyn, and Grenier. So as you can see, he does bring his own faction buff, and this is one that primarily benefits him, increasing damage dealt by 20% when you're under attack. For bonds, he unlocks the attack bonds for Chris, Grenier, and Narm. For his own bonds, he needs Chris for his very important defensive bond, and Elwyn for his less important attack bond. For content, in PvE, he's on faction for Hugin and Munin in Ancient Beckoning, but he's not exactly a useful pick in there. In Eternal Temple, he's on faction for Scylla, where again, he's mostly dead weight. And for Phoenix, where he actually can do pretty great DPS with a couple of bonus damage stacks piled up. He can also helpfully protect Leon in some setups against the Fire and Thunder Dragons, and his 3C skill can come in handy in some challenges and timeless trials. So you can use it in those kinds of fights to summon enemies away from their guards and support units, and then pick them off with your own units outside the danger zone. He hasn't been considered one of the best tank choices for PvP, traditionally, because compared to Juglar and Landius, he's quite a bit easier to counter. His 3C skill does help him out a little bit by giving his kit some more disruptive options, such as summoning an enemy out of formation and then preventing movement and guard. He also becomes a bit more of a meta choice in Season 6, thanks to SP Elwyn helping vault Legion of Glory back into viability. And also thanks to the multi-tank meta, which means you can afford to slot him into your box without sacrificing Landius or Juglar. For availability, this same banner with Rachel and Altemuller should be coming back in early April. Now, moving on to Rachel. Rachel is a mage with a great combo of AoE and single target skills, and she also has extra healing and utility thrown in for good measure. Her talent allows her to remove debuffs and also heal surrounding allies after she does damage, including AoEs. Her 3-cost skill is a big AoE blast that causes several stacks of fixed damage, and she has Gospel, and she floats. Thanks to the recent release of the new Scepter of Divinity, Rachel is now often able to use her powerful single-target spells like Dark Reaper and Holy Word at 3 range, and this means she can more easily attempt to spike Landius and other ranged units. That's not even her unique gear, it just happens to be a great weapon on her. She's a member of Protagonists buffed by Matthew, and Yeles Legends buffed by Landius and Sigma. For bonds, she unlocks the defensive bond for Lambda and the all-important attack bond for Landius. For her own bonds, she needs Angelina for her defensive bond and Landius for her own attack bond. For content, in PvE she's on faction against Phoenix in Eternal Temple, and she's also great against the Ice Dragon for obvious magical reasons. In Ancient Beckoning, she's on faction for Hugin and Munin, but she's one of the top meta picks against Nidhogg. On the PvP side, she's still quite a common threat in Apex Arena boxes, both for her magical power and versatility, and because she has access to Gospel. The Scepter of Divinity means she can be used quite effectively as a single target threat. Death's Robe and Crystal Warlocks can make her surprisingly resilient as well. For availability, in addition to the early April return of this same banner, Rachel will also be showing up on another Destiny banner in early February with Lana and Tiaras. And finally we have Altemuller. One half of the formerly game-defining Langrisser tandem, Altemuller was a fashionable pick for run-of-the-mill PvE because he's a tanky flyer and thus quite mobile, with self-sustain and a faction buff that lets Leon run all over the map. His talent lets him grow stacks of attack boost and damage reduction, and his unique Secret Realm helmet increases the duration of self-buffs, including breeze procs. His underwhelming 3-cost skill gives him an additional attack without moving again if he's in the midst of multiple enemies when he launches his original attack. He's a member of Strategic Masters, buffed by Altemuller and Lanford, Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozel and Licorice, and Empire's Honor, buffed by Bernhardt, Leon, Lance, and Rosenseal. His faction buff allows you to treat all passable terrain as planes when moving, which was absolutely essential for Leon back before he got his unique dragon armor. This also grants you plus 15% damage when you're attacking from terrain that has a defensive bonus. For bonds, he unlocks the attack bonds for Anna, Emmerich, Sigma, and Varna. With Sigma's SP Assassin class coming out in early 2021, you're definitely going to want that bond unlocked, so that's something to consider here if you don't have Altemuller already. For his own bonds, he only needs Anna and Emmerich, so quite easy there. Okay, now for content. In PvE, in the Eternal Temple, he's on faction for Phoenix and Valkyrie, where he can be fairly useful, and for Leviar, where he's not really very useful. In Ancient Beckoning, he's one of the key meta picks for both Fenrir and Sleipnir, being particularly useful against Sleipnir because of his ability to stack up tons of damage reduction. He can also be useful against the Dark Dragon and even the Thunder Dragon in his Lancer form if you don't have any better options. Of course, as I've already mentioned, he can also be used in story mode and joint battles as Leon's bulky wingman. His use in PvP has dropped off quite a bit since the early seasons of Apex Arena, and his 3C skill didn't exactly salvage him. People are now reduced to holding out hope for a potential future SP class line. If Zilong decides to start giving Strategic Masters some love in a few months like they have been with Legion of Glory and Empire's Honor, then maybe we'll see that happen next year. For availability, this same banner with Ledin and Rachel should be coming back in early April. So here's the quick and dirty. We have Ledin, who's a PvE-focused tank. He carries a faction buff for Legion of Glory, and he unlocks the attack bonds for Chris, Grenier, and Narm. We also have Rachel, who's a versatile single-target and AoE magical attacker with secondary healing. She unlocks the defensive bond for Lambda and the attack bond for Landius. And finally we have Altemuller, who's a durable flyer and Leon amplifier. He has a faction buff for Strategic Masters, and he unlocks the attack bonds for Anna, Emmerich, Sigma, and Varna. Finally, just the usual reminder about upcoming banners. This is like the third or fourth time this banner has been rerun, and it's overlapping with the new characters Florentia and Tsubame next week, so plan accordingly. When this banner expires, it'll be replaced with a non-Destiny raid-up banner featuring the Assassins Dihart and Shalinka. Let me know in the comments if you're planning on summoning on this banner, knocking out a Destiny summon maybe, or saving up for next week. I do need shards for both Rachel and Altemuller, but to be honest, that seems like a luxury when I know that trying to get both Florentia and Tsubame is going to be potentially expensive. So I think I'm going to hold off on this one for now. Thanks for watching everyone. I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon.